Yes, sir.
What did they do with the GE stuff up there, the PCBs on the Hudson River? That went down to Glens Falls area and went into the sediment, and then last I heard they were arguing about leaving it there or digging it up. And I think they left it there.
They left it there for a long time. And in 2001 or 2, EPA then Administrator Governor Christine Todd Quitman made the decision, or approved the decision that her EPA staff had made, that it was time to dredge up sediments from behind the dams.
Yeah.
Just from behind the dams. And they've been working on that process now from behind several dams. And they do it there because those are identified hot spots where it's accumulated behind that dam, just like sediment is accumulating in somebody's lake and somebody else's reservoir here. Both the reservoir and the lake are accumulating sediments. And up there on the Hudson, they're going to dredge those out. They'll isolate the section they're dredging. They use engineering controls that are well known. They'll remove the sediments. I don't remember whether they're going to take the water out of the sediments there or at the final site. And my understanding is that they're taking them down to Oklahoma, to a landfill.
Oh, good, Oklahoma.
Yes, miss.
Okay, you said that they recover it before, it's in the air. What do they do with it ultimately once they take it out of the soil?
It goes to a treatment process. Treatment is a hazardous waste landfill. Sometimes it's a liquid treatment process in which you use activated carbon and other filtration materials, and then you just keep moving it around, right? You can see that.
That's what I was wondering.
Eventually, it winds up at a hazardous waste processing disposal facility. Yes, sir.
I have 2 questions. I understand that at least in this area, the exposure comes from contamination of eating food. Is there any danger to the water supply, the drinking water supply?
In the drinking
water?
water?
I'm going to pause you right there because that's one that I'd love for all of our panel members to have a chance to address. Okay. If there's something particular to this presentation, please do ask it now, but we have a full time set aside in a little bit for y'all to be able to
answer.
Yes, that's right.
Which may come afterward, but I want to know that process you were talking about, King, was sort of that flux capacitor or whatever that thing is.
I know what movies he watches.
Is that what's going on out by the airport?
Yes.
See the plume of smoke coming out all the time?
Yes, that's it.
So what's in that discharge? Is it just steam?
It's principally steam. There's a little bit of particulate matter, but it's steam, and it's enough steam so that if you go by, that you can, as I can, feel the droplets on your head.
Is there any way to put a block, like or a dam, to keep the sediment in while they're researching this to keep it from going any further?
They're doing that right now at the very head of the process. There was like a settling pond right at the site, and that had its own dam, and then there was other sources of water and some runoff from there and stormwater that formed the head of the creek, and that flow has been stopped. So that if you go back there as we did today, Louise took us back there, we drove around, and you have to get out and walk down and see, oh yeah, I guess you could see a creek bed in here because there's literally no water flowing into it. So they have got that stopped up. They're removing all of that source material, which would have been the sediment and the settling stuff that came out for...
Would it be possible to put another one downstream further?
It would be possible to put another one downstream further, and what you're looking at is capturing any contaminated sediment. Yeah.
I think the problem then becomes, how do you dam the NEuse River? Because when it's already been found in the NEuse River, and we have a number of organizations and towns that pull water and wastewater, all go in and out. There's this constant flux of water in and out of the NEuse, and when we're not really sure where the end of this contamination is, how do you determine where to put the dam? So.
Yeah?
Yeah, I was going to ask you, how do you know, you mentioned that fish have such a high level of contamination in the Lake Crabtree area, say,
yes,
that it doesn't correlate with the amount in the sediment, so you
yes,
think there might be another source.
Yes.
How do you know that? How do we know we can't attribute it to what's in the sediment?
EPA has required, part of the remedial investigation is sediment sampling and fish tissue sampling. And on the basis of those sediment samples and those fish tissue samples, it would be difficult to explain it. And it goes back to that slide that I showed that had the bar graphs with the purple and the green. Much higher concentrations in the fish than in the sediment. And with enough experience working not only in the laboratory but at a number of sites around the country and the world, we can gauge a certain ability to predict, given the amount in the sediment, we should see a certain amount in fish. And that gap is huge here, given what's been reported in the sediment, which means either the sediment samples are insufficient or there's something else going on. Sir, and then ma'am.
I realize this is about this area and the fish, etc., but since so many living organisms are susceptible to PCBs, and since I'm currently reading a book called Fruitless Fall, which is about colony bees, colony collapse disorder, is there any possibility that PCBs are affecting bees, or is that way too far of the scope of what you're talking about?
Wow, what a question. Did everybody hear that question?
Yeah.
Colony collapse disorder in bees? Do PCBs play any role in that colony collapse disorder? That's not a question that I had thought about. And I would hesitate to say either way. I do know that there are scientists who are investigating other chemicals that may be contributing to colony collapse disorder. Because as we see, we learn a lot about the way environmental contaminants affect living systems by taking those lessons from one to the next to the next. And in the Great Lakes and in working on PCBs and some others, we've discovered that PCBs can alter the reproductive system. It can alter normal development. Other chemicals really have a strong effect on the immune system. So if it impairs the immune system, then the animals are no longer able to fight off disease and infection. And bees are susceptible to a number of conditions that their immune systems are used to protect them from. Parasitic infections, fungal infections. Yes, ma'am.
Last question for now.
Okay, it had to do with the sampling of the sediments.
Yes.
I know there's been a little bit more sediment samples, but one of the issues, as I understand it, is perhaps there's insufficient sampling to identify the hot spots.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I might have read that between the lines as well.
I hope I wasn't being between the lines about that.
Couldn't that be why it could still be Ward? It's just that we've insufficient
Yes.
sediment samples?
Yes. And the explanation for that, or how that might work, which is what I think everybody recognizes, is that over the years there was enough material released from the Ward transformer site, enough contaminated sediments, and sediments are washed down the creek normally. And we know that because the depth of Crabtree Lake has dropped from 19 to 16 feet. Is that about right? Anyway, so we know the sediments are coming down. They're coming down from multiple sources. And for a certain time period, they're going to be bringing PCBs with them. So are there sediments in either the reservoir or the lake that we have measured?
I'm going to stop questions for now because you will have an opportunity to write questions down on cards. You can either obtain them from our Vanna here, or I will have them. There may be some in the back as well. If you don't have a pen, I have pens as well. One thing I do want to let you know is that if your question is not addressed by the panel this evening, it will be addressed, it will be answered, and it will be available with the question on a website that we are putting together for you to access in the future. If you want to know when that website's up and available, you need to make sure to sign in and give us your email and check that you want to know about what's going on. But before I turn you loose for about a 5-minute break, we've had a partner in this for a while now because we are very much in the city of Raleigh, and they have been helpful to us in the past in understanding what some of the impacts are potentially to our citizens, as well as a voice of reason. So I was hoping that Mayor Meeker, who has graced us with